Hi, everyone. I have to agree to that. Hi, everyone. It's great to see so many people. We have 27 folks on tonight, and I think there'll be some more people joining us as we move along. We're being recorded, as you all know, and thanks to Jessica Domschek for helping us with our technical stuff. Thanks, Jess. She's our membership chair. So if you're interested in joining or renewing, you can contact her. Her contact info is on our website. Mike Sefton organizes our programs, and he's here from his home, and he's our vice president and program chair. And I'm your president. It's great to see you. And we have Don Chalfant here. Mike's going to introduce him in a moment, but I'm going to do some quick announcements before that happens. We generally do interesting bird sightings at the beginning of our meetings. Anyone who's been to our in-person meetings will know we do that. And there has been a few cackling geese down on the little pond in Milan. Right, you can go to park at the American Legion and have a look at the little pond there right in downtown Milan. It's been a really good time, and lots of birders in our area have seen them. And there may be some more birds. I know there are golden eagles coming through the hawk watches in Detroit. So keep your eyes to the skies. Rough-legged hawks should be showing up soon. While we're not conducting in-person field trips or in-person programs, we're so glad to be able to connect with all of you, our members and our friends and the larger birding community. Our advice for birding safely outside of your own yard is please wear a mask if you're in a crowded area, or find another area to bird. There's lots of them where there's not so many people. I have a quick update about our chimney swift count that we had in August. I didn't get to make the announcement about the chimney swift count because my audio was malfunctioning. We had lots of roosts show up, and other roosts that we didn't know about were hosting chimney swifts. St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Ypsilanti had all of the swifts there, and the other places that normally have swifts roosting there in the summer and fall, Depot Town and New Beginnings Academy had many less swifts than usual, and the Ypsi Ale House, which was hosting over 100 swifts just before August 14th when we started our count, all of a sudden, those swifts went somewhere else, and we assume they went to St. Luke. Mac School in Ann Arbor was the largest roost with 400 to 500. Here it's only 2 blocks from my house, so they pass over my house on their way there. It was really wonderful in both places. And the Ann Arbor Distillery, distilling company, which is on Felch Street in Ann Arbor, hosted several hundred swifts during the count. And since then, many of the birds from Mac, I believe, have moved over there. So they might still be a few swifts there, even though most are now migrating. 1200 North Main averaged over 3 nights about 150 birds. It's a really nice spot along the river near Argo and Bandamer Park. First Presbyterian Church in Saline hosted over 225 swifts, and a couple surprise roosts at Slauson Middle School hosted some 30 swifts, and it's been about 5 years since any swifts used Slauson, so we are pretty excited about that. Bethlehem United Methodist Church on 4th Ave in Ann Arbor had over 200 swifts, and the Northern Brewery, which is on Jones Drive going onto the north side of Ann Arbor, had about 160 swifts on average. Miller Manor still had a few dozen. That's right on Miller near my house. And you looked at that one through from West Park. And Harris Hall on State and Huron had a great group that was hard to count because of the trees that were blocking the chimney. However, Sherry Smith helped us and let us know that there were a ton of them there. We had over 20 volunteers, which is fabulous for this event. Lots of folks who were not part of our board, and even people who are just Swift lovers and weren't even Washtenaw Audubon members were helping us out. So it turned out to be a great community building event, and thanks to everyone who helped. We held an unofficial big sit last weekend. We did not advertise it because we were trying to be careful about COVID. And Don and several dedicated counters who stayed 6 feet apart and wore masks the whole time counted 50 species, which was excellent for that windy day. It was a very nice day, but it was very windy, so it was hard to hear. We have upcoming events. Just wanted to let you know. November 3rd, don't forget to vote as if your life and our earth and environment depend upon it, because they do. Yeah. And November 18th, we'll have the Washtenaw Audubon program presented by Keith Dickey, our treasurer, and it'll be on birding in Oahu, and he's a terrific photographer, so you'll really enjoy that. The link will be posted on Facebook and our website. We don't have the Zoom link up yet, so we'll do that soon. We don't have programs in November, but we do the Christmas bird count. Now, National Audubon Society is recommending and suggesting that we wait until the middle of November before we confirm our date, because if the COVID situation worsens, I believe National Audubon Society may call off the Christmas bird count. But as of now, our event is scheduled for December 19th, so you may want to mark your calendar if you want to participate. And Jaco Kelderloos, who's here on the call, he's our newsletter editor, and he also is the CBC organizer and compiler. So he'll be letting all of us know on the website and the Facebook page and in our upcoming newsletter, all the details about the CBC.
Julia, we have a question.
Yes.
Can I interrupt? Someone has asked if you could talk about what a cackling goose is.
Oh, yes, a cackling goose looks like a very tiny Canada goose. It's the size of a mallard, has a short neck, a little stubby bill, and it used to be considered a subspecies minima of the Canada goose, and now it's its own species. I think maybe 10 years or so. Those of you who are more in the know might know when it became its own species, but comparable in size to a mallard and very cute. And looks just like one, except for maybe a little, looks like a Canada goose, but just a little darker. So if we have a CBC Christmas bird count, we'll have a Zoom tally that evening, and we should make that Zoom link available for folks who want to participate or hear what we saw. And it's usually fun. We usually have a potluck for that, but we won't be doing that this year because of the coronavirus. And we'll be announcing other 2021 events shortly, which are mostly at this point online programs. Mike, I was hoping your illustrious self would introduce our illustrious speaker for the evening.
My great pleasure, Madam President. We're pleased to have Don Chalfant as our speaker tonight. One of Washtenaw Audubon's most popular field trip leaders and speakers, Don's conducted the Big Sit at Independence Lake for the past 22 years and is also a past president of Washtenaw Audubon. Don began birding in 1986 and quickly started setting records. He's won the coveted Wingnut Award many times by seeing the greatest number of species in the county for the year. He's seen 298 species in the county in his lifetime, 372 in Michigan, 419 in his winter state of Florida, and is probably has the highest count of any non-full-time resident of Florida. He's seen 773 in North America, north of Mexico, and a whopping 809 in the ABA area, which includes Hawaii. Don's become a skilled photographer, as you'll see tonight. Please welcome the man, the legend, Don Chalfant.
I should say now, I'm Don Chalfant, and I approve of this. I approve this message. Let's get started here. Let me push the right buttons here. Okay. The title is a virtual. Now I'm not full. I want to be full screen here. Okay.
You want to click on slideshow up at the top?
Yeah. Okay. See, I'm getting all nervous here.
From the beginning at the far left. There you go.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jess. That was Jess who gave me that advice, right, Jess? If I were leading a nature walk with you, I would encourage you to listen and of course look, but not just look. Look more intently, look longer, look from a different angle, look at a different time. And it's amazing how your perspective will change if you do that, as some of my photos, I hope tonight will demonstrate. I heard a great quote about a year ago, and I decided, decided to build a program around it. This is a quote by Rachel Carson. One way to open your eyes is to ask yourself, what if I had never seen this before? And what if I knew I would never see it again? And some of the shots that I'm going to show you are just a plain shot. But if I knew that I would never see that bird or something again, oh boy, I would stare at it for hours, maybe. Okay, let's get started. One of the things that got me started was this. Spiderwort is a pretty common wildflower, as most of you know, if you're at all naturalists other than birders. But let's look at it from a different angle. Now, it doesn't look like a spiderwort anymore. And if we look at it at a different time, in this case, late summer, it's pretty hard to tell that it's a spiderwort. So we're looking at something, then we look at a different angle, we look at a different time. And if I were more knowledgeable, I would try to find something to tell you with just about everything that would help you remember it, would pique your interest. And in the case of the spiderwort, I'm not going to read to you. I'm hoping you can read this for yourself. This is an example of the kind of information that I would try to give with each thing that we encountered. Fireweed. From a distance, fireweed's pretty attractive. Sort of looks like purple loosestrife in a way. It's so-called fireweed because it's the first flower to bloom after it's been ravaged by fire. But let's look up close. If you only see it from a distance, it's just a field of pink lavender. But oh boy, up close, it's a marvelous, marvelous flower. And there's its range. The pictures of it you just saw, I took in Alaska. But it does occur in places other than Alaska, especially places that have been ravaged by fire. So I'm assuming that out west in some of the national parks and some of the places like California and Oregon, fireweed will be more abundant than usual. Red cedar is a pretty common tree. Most of you are familiar with it, I think. I was talking about red cedar to a group here, a local group called Elderwise. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a group of mostly seniors. When I started giving programs there, I was one of the youngest, and now it seems I'm one of the oldest. But One of the people in the group was a retired botany prof from U of M, and boy, I learned a lot from her. And so every time I had any question, I'd stop in the middle of a presentation and ask her if that was correct. She taught me the word dioecious. I was familiar with the word, but I didn't know how to pronounce it. Red cedars are dioecious. That is that each tree is either male or female. That's a female there, and that's a male. But if you only look at the male or female parts of the tree, you're missing something really, really fascinating in my mind anyway. Look at the trunk. God, it's spectacular. And I cannot look at that trunk without thinking of that Rembrandt painting. It looks very similar to me, the same kind of style. I doubt if Rembrandt painted the red cedar, but
This is Van Gogh.
what did I say? Rembrandt? No, you're right. It is Van Gogh. What did I say? Rembrandt? I'm sorry. I know it's Van Gogh. Duh. I get carried away. It's amazing how often when I'm doing a program, I'll have a butterfly and I'll call it a bird. And it just, oh well, sorry about that. I have an excuse. I'm old. There's one. I almost always find an excuse to include this in almost every program I do. This, I believe, is the best bird photo I've ever taken. This scarlet tanager had just finished eating mulberries. As you can see, that little drip of mulberry in its bill. And look closely at its eye. Look at that eye ring. And it's just, this is one, I'm not gonna show you male and female. We're not gonna listen to its song or anything. We're just gonna look. Pretend that you'll never see one again. I hope that's never true, of course. Okay, Trumpeter Swans. Probably most of my Trumpeter Swans pictures were taken, as you might guess, out at Scioto Church in Parker. And so I'm sure that you've all been out there to see Trumpeter Swans. And they put on a show sometime. But once in a while, they'll put on a different show, one that's a little more unexpected, like that. They're nesting, as Juliet will affirm, they're nesting in the settling pond by Wine's School on M14. And Mike and Susan Kelb live adjacent to that. Mike told me that they heard the trumpeters trumpeting, and they thought there was a traffic jam out on M14 with all the horns honking. This is the sound they heard. In case you're wondering why they're called Trumpeter Swans. This couple of pictures was a sort of an exercise in patience. I'm far more patient now as a photographer. Those of you who have taken up photography will probably understand this well. I think nothing at all of sitting or standing in one place for 20 minutes waiting for a butterfly to open its wings or waiting for something to happen. I was up at Whitefish Point, and there was the red crossbills were coming in to feed on stuff that was on the road. And there was a tree right beside the road. And I thought, sooner or later, one of them was going to come in and be on that tree. So I just sat there in the car, and that was the result. I shot both the male and the female. Now, if you've never seen a crossbill before, their bill looks like those cormorants that were damaged by DDT. They're with malformed bills, but their bill is specifically designed to open pine and spruce cones, tree cones. If you were in Scouts, Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, you probably learned about sassafras, and you learned probably that you could make tea out of it. Well, what I've learned since then is that number one, the leaves are far more interesting in autumn time than they are in the summer. But I also learned that the tea, while it may taste good and smell good, it may not be all that safe to drink. It's one of the county's nesting warbler species. I wouldn't call them abundant, but they're pretty common at Stinchfield Woods. And this was taken at Nan Weston, I believe. Why is it called an oven bird? Well, that's its nest on the left. It's supposed to resemble a Dutch oven. I don't know, Jaco, if you'd agree with that or not, but I'm not sure. I didn't name it. I always sort of wondered why this was called an eastern comma, but I was out on Embry Road with Michael and Susan Kelb. They're the best naturalist couples that I've ever met. And she explained to me why it's called a comma. There's the female, and there's the comma right there, only seen on the underside of the wing. I include the saw-whet owl because I like owls. I'm really partial to owls. And those of you who've been out with me birding are probably well aware of the fact that I think the first field trips I ever led for Washtenaw were owl prowls, and they were always challenging, but very rewarding and successful. Anyway, there's the saw-whet. And there's its range, although I would sort of disagree with they are really not really a non-breeding resident. They're very rare in the southeastern part of the country. But you can see they're supposed to, according to this, they are a permanent resident here. And I think you'll all agree that that's not the case. They occur, but only probably in the wintertime here. I'm also, in addition to collecting bird photos and so forth, some of you are aware of the fact that I'm a birding vanity license plate collector. And that one's on mine, obviously. That's New Jersey, but it's part of my collection. And I'll show you several of those today. The saw-whet is probably the easiest, that and the northern pygmy, which doesn't occur here, probably the easiest owls to imitate. It's just a plain whistle, same pitch, pretty much the same speed the whole time. And I've experienced them when they were in breeding area in the spring, and believe me, when they start, they call literally all night long. Spruce grouse is one of the main attractions up at Whitefish Point, and that's a male, and it gets probably most of the attention. But if you only look at the male, you're missing a real treat, because the female is gorgeous. It's so many different shades of light and dark brown, and it's spectacular. If you hang around at the right time, you'll find a male demonstrating for the female. I watched this pair, for about a half an hour. And trust me, this guy did everything he could to impress her. He got all dressed up in his finest finery. He strutted that tail and danced around and just did everything possible. I think he wanted to take her out to dinner and give her champagne and all kinds of things, but she just wasn't interested. She finally just walked away. Felt sorry for him. By the way, something I forgot to tell you, and that those of you who aren't experienced with spruce grouse may want to know this. One of its nicknames is Fool's Hen. And just to tell you how foolish they are, they're very, very approachable. I've had two experiences to demonstrate this. This bird was the first one that I ever photographed. Back when I first got a camera, I think in 1987 or 88 or so, maybe even later. I don't remember when I got my first camera. Anyway, it was perched on a branch, and half the bird was in the sunlight and half of it was in the shade. And you know, if you're a photographer, that's just not desirable. It should be all one way or the other. So I walked over closer to the bird thinking that it would flush and move to a different spot. Well, it didn't. I got closer and closer and closer. It still didn't move. I was within about 6 feet of it. Finally, I was maintaining social distancing, I guess. Finally, it still hadn't moved, so I grabbed the branch that it was on and shook the branch. It flew to a branch about 10 feet away, was totally in the shade, and I got this photo. One of the field trips that I led, I used to lead 2 a year for Washtenaw up to Whitefish Point. One of them, we had first thing Saturday morning was always what we did. We looked for spruce grouse. We found some, and there was one that was strutting around, displaying, and two of the guys wanted to stay longer. After we all wanted to go back to the point, two of them wanted to stay longer and get photos. Well, they stayed a while, and when they got to the point, they were so excited. One of them was laying on his stomach so that he could get a direct level shot of the bird. And the bird came over, and I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it, and stood on his camera while he was holding it. And the other guy, the other photographer, and it was John Lowry, by the way, took the photo of the spruce grouse perched on the other guy's camera. Fool's hen. Okay, I hadn't meant to talk so long about spruce grouse. Not just in a place like Whitefish Point, where you can see this reindeer lichen. I've also seen it in Florida. And it's pretty attractive stuff from a distance. It's interesting, but when you look at it up close, remember we're looking at things at a different angle, or from more closely. Totally different. Look at it. Look at it now. It's looks almost like an aquatic plant. One of the fun things to do with mockingbirds, and of course, I spend half the year in Florida. Where mockingbird is the official state bird, by the way, and they're in the spring, they are very, very vocal, as you might guess. One of the really fun things to do is to listen to their calls, because they have a song that you can recognize, it's recognizable, but they also imitate other birds. That's why it's called a mockingbird, of course. It's fun to listen, see what other birds you can hear, okay? Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Meant to do this. Well, I don't know, guys, but I could hear a couple other things that I think he might be imitating. Titmouse, red-eyed vireo. There's some others in there, but they go on and on like that. Okay, one thing to do. This is a plant I'd never seen before, but I started taking a walk over at Mary Beth Doyle Park in Ann Arbor, south part of Ann Arbor. They've done the city. I think there's a city park. They've done a wonderful, Juliet, you'd know. They've done a wonderful job of putting native prairie plants in that park, and this is called Prairie Dock. And this is something that I learned from Michael Kelby, as usual. The leaves of Prairie Dock are interesting. Okay, well, all the parts of the plant are interesting. Okay, there's, as you can see, huge leaves, attractive flowers, but even more attractive from this angle. And the leaves are much more interesting when you touch them, because they're warm on the top and cool underneath. Mike pointed that out to me. Thanks, Michael.
Don, Mary Beth Doyle is one of the city parks that we've done a lot of planting. Our park steward, Mark Stewart, whose name is Mark Charles, is a great advocate for the park, and we do a lot of planting there.
Yeah,
And it's also managed by the county as well.
It's obvious that the planting that's been done over there is appropriate and has been successful. It's a good spot. Here's another dioecious plant. Male and female Staggered Sumacs occur on separate plants, separate shrubs. The Staggered Sumac I think is a pretty interesting plant. It's got interesting leaves. Compound leaf with about, 14, 16 leaflets. But that's only part of it. Because as interesting as it might be in the summer, look how much more interesting it is in the fall. Gorgeous leaf. Here's one of those birds that named itself. It gave it, they didn't know what to call it, so they decided to let it decide what it was going to be called. And it decided to, it called itself the Dick-Dick-Sissel. I remember, must have been, 15, 18 years ago when we had our first Dick Sissel out in the southwestern part of the county. Oh boy, was that exciting. And now they're regular, they occur there regularly. Here again, I'm including barred owl, partly because I think most people are interested in owls. But there's one little thing we can show you that I'm not sure you've noticed. One thing I've noticed over the years, talking to both birders and especially to non-birders, there are two groups of birds that even non-birders are interested in. Those are owls and hummingbirds. For some reason, people are attracted to those groups. Must be because they're so incredibly different from all the other birds. Interesting thing about the barred owl is it has bars. Its bars are going horizontally on its chest, but vertically on its belly. Real dark eyes, and a call that says, "Who cooks for you?" By the way, that photo was taken while the bird was calling. One thing I noticed, didn't know about owls, was that You can see some vibration in their throat, but they don't necessarily open their mouth like songbirds do. This bird was one of the first time I ever noticed that in an owl. There's a barred owl range. It's a rather interesting range. There's Strix plates from 2 different states. Strix is the genus of barred owl. It's also the genus of, let's see, great gray and spotted owls. You'll probably know by the time I'm done, dragonflies have become just about my favorite thing to photograph. Not only are they incredibly attractive, but they're so cooperative. When they land, they usually stay there for a while. They open their wings so you can see the intricate lacing in their wings. They're colorful. They're great critters to photograph. There's the male and there's the female. And many dragonflies, by the way, are like kingbirds in that respect. When they do fly away, they often come back to exactly the same spot. But if you look at the whole dragonfly, you may be missing the incredibly gorgeous wings. Look at the design of the blue dasher. Or, oh boy, the design and lace of the calico pennant. And look at this one. That is a spatter duck, and it's a member of a group of dragonflies known as mosaic dragonflies, and you can see why. And if you just look at the total dragonfly, you're going to miss the eyes. Look at the eyes on this emerald. Oh boy. Now you can see why I like dragonflies so much. And a male green darner, look, that blue, it's almost neon. It's one of several that you can identify in flight. That's an easy one to identify in flight because of its spectacular colors. Here's an exercise in patience again. This is a barn swallow, of course. I was over on the west side of the county and I pulled up next to a marsh, wetland, and just to see if something might pop up. Who knows? You never know when a green heron is going to pop up or something like that. Well, I was sitting there for a few minutes and then I noticed a couple of little barn swallows on a branch not 10 feet in front of me. By the way, I remain in my car almost all the time when I photograph, unless I'm really out for a walk. I prefer to photograph from the car. It serves as a it's a natural blind. Birds are not spooked by it. And these birds were looking up. Well, they were looking up for obvious reasons. And the female, I assume that's the mother, came in and was feeding them. And I just sat there thinking, what serendipity? Just happened to happen. It just happened while I happened to be sitting there. Tamarack, there's one of the most interesting places on Embry Road, my favorite road in the county, is there's a low tamarack bog area. Tamarack's an interesting tree. There are only 2 North American coniferous trees. Look at that. I misspelled trees. Tress. How about that? That are deciduous. They lose their needles. If you really want to split hairs, you could say there are 3 because there are 2 species of conifer or of cypress. But tamarack and cypress are essentially the only 2 that are deciduous. here again, dragonflies. I'm going to show you something now that you may never have seen before. They're mating. These are white-faced meadowhawks, and they're doing whether it's called a mating wheel, although it doesn't necessarily always look like a wheel. Sometimes it looks more like a square, and sometimes I'm going to show you later something, an interesting shape that they get into. By the way, don't try this at home. Screech owl is one of my favorites, as you must know, and one of the things that got me started leading trips for Ann Arbor. I led the annual, several annual owl prowls, and screech owl was usually our one we were searching for. There's an interesting statistic about the gray morph and the red morph. Here's the red, and this was taken in Florida. The other one was taken in Ann Arbor. This was taken in New Smyrna Beach. And one of the things I try to do on my bird walks is try to teach people to do a screech owl call. If you can whistle, it really isn't hard to do a screech owl call. People think that, whoops, I didn't mean to go yet. There are two parts to the screech owl call. One is a whinny and one is a trill. There's the whinny. And there's the trill. Now, the reason you'd want to learn how to do it is because other birds are attracted to it. I used to carry a little tape recorder with me, and on Christmas counts, freeze my hands off trying to get a screech owl to respond, until Carl Overman from Detroit taught me how to do the call myself. And it's easy to do. If you can whistle, then you can do a screech owl call, because all you have to do is whistle and gargle at the same time. I know that sounds weird, but it sounds like this. And with that screech owl call, I have called in screech owls, barred owls, barn owls, great horned owls, and out west, I even called in a northern pygmy owl, which is interesting because eastern screech owls don't occur out west. Anyway, as you can see, the Florida has more red morph. Great. This is my license plate. It's also my email address. And evidently I have a friend in Pennsylvania. By the way, that's what the Pennsylvania's license plate used to say. You have a friend in Pennsylvania. Now, who knows what that is? You're probably going to say it's a daddy long legs, right? Well, there are three answers. It's sort of popular name is daddy long legs, but its common name is harvestman. And its scientific name is the one that's so interesting. The scientific name is Opilio. Now, I don't know how many of you know Latin. I certainly didn't. But Opilio is Latin for shepherd. Well, what does that have to do with this daddy long legs? Because the European shepherds walked on stilts to observe their herds, and therefore looked like daddy long legs, what later became daddy long legs. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. There's probably the most, one of the two or three most common damselflies. This is the male, and this is the female, ebony jewel wing. There they are again. This is the female with the white on her on the wings, and this is the male that looks sort of a glowing. I don't know what color that would be. Not turquoise, blue, something. I don't know. You butterfly people can tell the difference between male and female monarchs, but most people think, ah, no, there's no way you can tell. Well, yes, there is. That's the male. Those two little spots right there are scent glands that the male has, but the female does not. Now, this monarch was on a butterfly or a button bush, and you're going to be seeing button bush a little more later, so I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. This cerulean. I was leading a group of birders from California. They came into the area, and they were on their way up to see Kirtland's warbler. But while they were here, I entertained them, and I usually, when I get serious birders, I ask them if there's any birds in particular that they want to see. Well, they only had two. There were two birds that they wanted to see. They knew their stuff, though, because they wanted to see cerulean warbler and upland sandpiper. By golly, we got both of them. So they were happy campers. And not very loud, is it? Okay. Here's the question mark. We saw the comma earlier. The question mark, you identify the same way. Why did it, how did it become a question mark? Why is it called a question mark? Well, there it is. There's the question mark. It looks like a comma, but there's the period at the bottom. That's a question mark. Interesting. Thanks to Susan Kelb for showing that out. You can't go for a drive very far in Washtenaw County anymore without seeing turkeys, male and female. But you don't always get to see the young ones. I mean, the real young ones. Look like they're rehearsing for the marching band. And despite the fact that you see so many turkeys, you don't very often get to see one like this. How do you like that, Morgan? I hope you get a chance to see and hear one like that someday. Oops. There's a great egret. Used to be that a great egret was, oh boy, it was a rare sighting in the county, but now they're pretty common. The one I'm going to show you, however, was not taken in the county because it is in high breeding plumage. You can tell the breeding plumage two ways. Not real well. You can see one way on this photo. Look how lacy the plumage becomes. Just real fine, thin plumes all over. But right between the bill and the eye, there's a sort of a lime green color that occurs on the great egret in breeding plumage. One of the, whoops, I got ahead of myself here. One of the things I have sometimes make captions for these photos, and my caption for this photo is from Robin Williams. I hope you all remember Robin Williams as fondly as I do. His quote was, "Spring is nature's way of saying, let's party." And this photo always makes me think of Robin Williams and that quote. That's not a very attractive thing. It looks like something you want to maybe hang a bird feeder on, but that's part of a plant that includes this flower, the American lotus. Gorgeous flower. Now, you say, well, why is Don showing us an eastern towhee? That's an awfully common bird. Well, there's a big difference between this one and this one. Anybody know what it is? I'll show you again. It's not the song, it's not the age, it's the color of the eye. That's a Florida towhee, not species. It's the Florida eastern towhee, and that's the Michigan eastern towhee. There's the female Michigan towhee. Here again, give me a chance to show off some of my license plates. I believe that this bird is the most often misidentified bird probably on the continent. And you all, I'm sure, know what it is. It's a female red-winged blackbird. Now, there's another chance of showing you, or demonstrating for you, patience. Those of you who might have known me 25, 30 years ago will realize that I really am so much more patient now than I was. And here's an example. Sit there long enough, guess what? It'll sing. I do enjoy photographing butterflies too, not just dragonflies. But look at them, look at this one at a different time in its life before it became that gorgeous butterfly. Sometimes you see a little squirrel and you're not sure whether it's a gray squirrel or a red squirrel. I know when I went to Florida, I saw a lot of what I thought were red squirrels until I realized that red squirrel doesn't occur in Florida. So I had to learn to tell the difference. The eye ring is pretty much the same. Very bright white eye ring, not a totally circle, but two semicircles anyway. But look at the edge of the feathers. Look at this ring of feathers here. The edge of the tail, reddish brown and silver or white. This is the gray squirrel. This is the red squirrel. Now, here's your quiz for the day. This one is gray, red, gray, red. You got them all right. Good. Now, you look at this, the range maps for the red and gray, and you'll realize that, we're sort of fortunate in this part of the country, right about here. This is the only part of the country that has, or the continent, I should say, that has both gray and red. Red does not occur in Florida, but gray is very common. The vocalizations are different too, but I think I'm going to move a little faster because it's, I guess I clicked the wrong button here. Horned grebe. Don was saying earlier that he saw horned grebes today over on Metro Beach or somewhere. In Florida, this is the horned grebe that I see because I'm there in the wintertime. This is their winter plumage. We are in between their wintering area and their nesting range, so we really only see them in migration, and we might see them either way. You might see it in this plumage, and you might see it in this plumage. This picture was taken right here at Stonebridge, where I live, in our pond. There's the range. Look how far apart the breeding range is from the wintering range. There again, Even a North Dakota plate. How about that? There's a male and there's a female. And this is one I was talking. I know this is a bit anthropomorphizing, but this mating wheel looks quite a bit like a heart. And it's sort of nice to think that they're not just propagating, but they are in love. And I follow that up with poison sumac. I'm going to let you read that quickly. What it says it says you want to remain distant from that stuff and don't try to burn it either. But it does have some benefits for birds and mammals in the wintertime. Here again, I'm a little partial to owls, and so I include these. Look at the range of the great horned owl. Literally covers the continent. Way above the tree line. This one's an easy one to imitate too. There's the immature, and it has a totally different call. Its call has specific meaning. It says, "Feed me." Bonaparte's one of my favorite gulls. It's particularly gorgeous in flight. But here's something about it that I thought was interesting. It is not named for Napoleon Bonaparte. Here again, we're in between their breeding and wintering ranges. It's not named for Napoleon Bonaparte. It's named for his cousin. Here's a grass that you're probably familiar with. Some of you might have it in your garden. It looks pretty nice, doesn't it? Yes, but look at it closer, more closely, I should say. And it's even more spectacular. Here again, if you look at things more closely or from a different angle, at a different time, you gain a far better perspective. There is some movement on to call this a ring-billed duck instead of ring-necked duck. It is officially known as a ring-necked duck. And one of the problems is it has a ring around its bill, but you don't very often get to see the ring around its neck. But once in a while, if you're patient again, you'll get a photo of one that shows the ring around its neck. Jewelweed is a common wildflower here. But if you just walk past it, you miss something really spectacular. It's a gorgeous flower. And it's very beneficial. The hummingbirds really like it. It's also called touch-me-not. Not because it's poisonous, but because it makes a noise. Remember, this program was sometimes given to non-birders, so I asked if anybody recognizes it. I'm sure you all know what it is. It's a female indigo bunting. My wife's favorite bird. You want to learn their song. A couple of birds that are really popular birds, like indigo bunting and Baltimore Oriole. once you learn their song, you realize they're far more common than you thought they were. You'll hear them a lot more than you'll see them. There's a really subtle looking spring flower, but in late summer, it produces these green berries, which turn red in the fall. Now, I'm including the cardinal because there's an interesting, I know it's very common for all of you. There's a very interesting fact. It's one of the most popular birds in the United States. When people from other countries come here, this is the bird that most excites them because other countries don't have birds. Well, a lot of countries, Europeans, don't have too many birds that are this colorful. And it's partly popular here because it's recognizable. It is so popular that it's the official state bird in 7 different states. There's the male and the female there. And I know that the Arizona Cardinals is not for birds, it's for a football team, but I included it in my collection anyway. And here again, I'm smitten with dragonflies, but I hope I continue to see them every year. Dryad Saddle is a fascinating fungus, named in an interesting way. But how many of you saw that? Let's go back and see it again. There it is, right there. That millipede was up there. We walked, I didn't see it when I walked past it. I didn't see it till I saw this photo. There again, look more closely. There's the button bush that I mentioned. I warned you about this one. It's very popular with butterflies out on Embry Road. So I was sitting there waiting for more butterflies, and guess what flew in? A hummingbird clearwing moth. First one I've ever photographed. I must have taken, I don't know, 30 or 40 photographs. This was last summer. And it must have been the summer of the clearwing moths, because a week later, I photographed one at Abbott's nursery. Went there for a totally different reason. I didn't go there to photograph birds or moths or butterflies. I went there on a garden issue, and here was one at Abbott's. They had never seen one either. Boy, when I showed them this, they went bananas. They was right in their own place. Not only that, look at that proboscis. Is that cool, huh? It's like a snail. Not only that, but a week later, oh, this is Alan Chartier's license plate, by the way. A week later, he photographed a snowberry clearwing moth out at the Botanical Gardens. It was the summer of the clearwing moth. Both species. Now, I'm including a few things in Florida because they demonstrate almost perfectly what I want to get across in this program. This is Bermuda grass. And you look at that and you say, okay, no, what's so special about Bermuda grass? Well, nothing really. You drive through, I think I was driving through a state forest, and there's just the road is lined with them. I mean, Bermuda grass all over the place. 4 prongs, 4 whatever you call them, branches of this grass. But serendipity. One stalk of Bermuda grass just happened, and I was just happened to be looking at the proper angle, and I saw this. If I'd been looking at it from a different angle, I wouldn't have seen that design at all. But I was just thrilled to get that. I could hardly wait to get home and share that with Lori. Bermuda grass. Here's knickerbean. We have knickerbean growing down about a mile from where we live. About a mile from where we live is the National Seashore, Canaveral National Seashore. Knickerbean is a real cool, interesting plant and has these big pods that they look like cacti. And they have these seeds pods that when they open, there are seeds inside. They look like, it looks like a bird's nest, look like eggs in a bird's nest. Sandwich tern is a fairly common tern on our, it's not abundant, but it's common on our beach in Florida every winter. You can identify it even in flight because of its the yellow tip of its bill. And there's something about how it got that name. If you see the underside of the Serranus blue, it's an attractive butterfly, especially you feel good getting a picture of it because that butterfly is only about as big as a dime. But when it opens its wings, which it does when it flies, but it doesn't very often do it when you can get a photo of it. It looks totally different. Gorgeous. From our condo in Florida, we look out and we can see five different colors of hibiscus. I must say it's one of the things we love about being there. And looking at a hibiscus that way, it's beautiful enough. But if you look at it from a different angle, look how different that plant looks and flower. It is spectacular. And the same thing was true of this one. It's gorgeous as it is. But look at it from a different angle, it looks very different. You get a chance to really see the parts of that. I guess you know why I'm showing you this, because I'm also going to show you the female, and I'm going to show them together. And there's that heart again. Young love. There's a wood stork. Pretty common in New Smyrna where we winter. And that was taken, there's a whole bunch of wood storks, by the way, calling all at the same time. So you asked the question, do storks bring babies? And I answer, of course they do. Baby wood storks. Now, my purpose today wasn't to get you to go to Arizona to see a rare bird, or it wasn't to get you to go. My purpose was to get you out more often, to get you looking more closely, to get you looking at a different angle, to get you to listen more intently. And if you do any of those things, then I feel like this has been a successful program. Hope to see you out there. Thank you. I will entertain questions if you have it, if you're still around.
I have a question. What time of the day would you say it's best to try to go get owl pictures?
Oh, pictures. Oh,
Well, or even just to find an owl. What time of the day do you find them the best?
Screech owls, I've found The hour before sunrise is traditionally the best time to hear them. But I've never even tried nighttime photography. I don't know enough about photography to do that. Those pictures were both taken of daytime. They were in a daytime perch, and once they're there, they stay there. And if you can find one, they're very photographable, I think, photogenic. Hi, Marilee.
Don, we had a question about where are the best places in Florida to photograph and see owls?
To see owls,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what kind of owls you want to see, there's a gimme place for burrowing owls.
Oh, yeah.
That's what's his name? Football.
Marco Island.
Yeah. Oh well, geez, Margaret. What's the name of that place? Oh boy, I'm giving a blank now. I'll think of it in a minute. What's the park that's named after a football player for Miami? Brian Piccolo. Brian Piccolo Park has 2 or 3 pairs of nesting burrowing owls. It also has nesting monk parakeets. But what's the name of that place oh geez, I remember. Oh boy. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting bad with names. It's over near Martin, north of Marco. What's the name of that town? Oh, it's the whole town has burrowing owls all over the place. They
Cape Coral.
yes, Cape Coral. Okay.
Yeah.
Coral. The city government wrote letters to all the homeowners saying, if you have these owls, they're not a problem. In fact, they're very desirable. They will eat the critters that you don't want in your yard. So if you get one, here's what you do. The best thing to do is to build you can put a rope around it to guard it from things, but build a perch post for them to. So this had to be 15, 20 years ago. I drove around Cape Coral and it was easy. I mean, you drive down the street and it looks like a pet cemetery. There's these perch posts in every other yard and there's a pair of owls there. I counted, I've forgotten, I got something like 70 or 80 owls in 2 hours. However, I've read, I haven't been back there in 15 years either, but I've read where the monitor lizards or something had taken over and were destroying the owls. But I would think that the city would do something about that, but I'm not sure. Anyway, Piccolo Park is a good place for that, and it's close to there's some great places in Southeast Florida down. Let's see, there's a place called Wakota. I mean, there's just, that's not for owls, but marvelous place to bird. Another question?
Don, there's a question that is, any experience with northern flying squirrels in Michigan?
I don't have any experience. I've seen them once or twice. I checked when we used to live over on Sunset, and the people next door said they had one in their backyard, but I looked for it several times and I could never find one. I'm sure they're here. I've been told that it's easy to find. You go out on a moonlit night and you look for a Frisbee. It looks like a Frisbee flying through the woods. That's a flying squirrel, but I haven't been able to find one yet. No, sorry. I'd like to. Anybody else? Susan, you have the greatest smile. I've been noticing your smile all night. Anybody
Yes, she does. So many people are thanking you for a great presentation, Don.
Oh,
It was really
My pleasure.
wonderful. I
Although I
enjoyed
gotta-
it immensely.
Well, I hope you did, although I got to tell you, I don't really like Zoom presentations. They're so impersonal. I'd rather interact with people, you know.
Of course, we all would, but we don't have any other way of getting together. It
I
is
know.
such a great thing for our birding community to be able
We-
to be together.
We do
even
the
if-
best we can. I know this
Yes.
is the fourth or fifth one of these I've done. And um,
It's good for me to see some of our old friends. I see Ginger and Marilee right there next to each other.
yeah,
Hello.
Marilee's one of my neighbors. I hardly ever get to see.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Ginger's your neighbor too.
Really?
Yeah, she's on
Where does-
Doral.
Where's Ginger live?
On Doral,
Oh, goodness gracious.
not
Well-
very far away. You'll
Yeah.
see us out walking together.
Okay. Stop by sometime.
Okay.
Thanks, Don. Good show.
Hey,
Yeah.
my
we enjoy
pleasure,
it.
Mike. Thank you. Anybody else? I guess not.
We very much appreciate
It
you.
was worth missing
presenting
Jeopardy
this show.
for.
Oh, good.
Right on, brother, right on.
We
Oh, my-
enjoyed it very much. Don.
But
Thank
you know,
so much.
Mike, are you still there?
Yeah, did you watch Jeopardy? I think it was last night, the question about what company tried to get the Johnny Cash song Ring of Fire for use in a commercial.
No, I didn't see that.
It was Preparation H, for God's sake.
No,
It was.
no, that's a joke. No, it's for real.
Alex Trebek would not jive us. It's
I
hard to
don't believe you. I
We're still recording this, guys. So why don't we
Okay.
end the presentation? And
No,
Don, it was wonderful to have you. And anyone who wants to hang on for a few minutes and chat can do so.
okay. I've got news for Mike.